Whenever you're dealing with a complex or uncertain circumstance in your life, you need enough options to match the complexity that you're facing. Listen to me very closely. A lot of times we feel stuck and we feel a lot of stress and overwhelm, not because of the circumstance itself, not because of the job itself, not because you're a caregiver, not just because of your money. You actually feel stuck because you don't feel like you have enough options to match the complex circumstance that you're in. If there's 10 different challenges in your relationship, if there's 10 different challenges in your career right now, but you only have one way of responding to that challenge, then you are already losing. You've already lost control because the law of requisite variety says the person with the most flexibility and variability in options has the most control. Welcome to the Radical Obedience Podcast, where clarity meets courage and surrender becomes your strategy. I'm your host, Lisa A. Smith. Over the years, people have told me, Lisa, you're the forever voice in my head. At first, I wasn't sure how to take it, but then I realized they weren't talking about me. They were talking about the questions I leave them with, the perspective shifts they can't unhear. So if you ever needed a forever voice in your head that reminds you to choose peace over performance, purpose over pressure, and surrender over control, welcome home. If you're a leader, entrepreneur, or high achiever who looks successful on the outside but feels overwhelmed, exhausted, or unfulfilled on the inside, this podcast is for you. Each week, we'll explore how complete surrender can help you eliminate chronic stress and burnout, gain clarity, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. Because in a world obsessed with control, the greatest transformation often begins when we finally let go. Welcome to the Radical Obedience Podcast. You feel stuck in a job that leaves you unfulfilled and exhausted. You're in a relationship that hasn't been blissful in years. You're in friendships or a family where you don't feel seen or understood or heard. I see you. You are maybe a caregiver and you feel like you take care of a lot of people, but you don't feel like it's safe to take care of yourself. Like you feel like your responsibilities are to everybody else and there's never enough time for yourself. Is that you? I see you. What about the money? It feels like it's never enough. Like you feel stuck, not because you don't have options, but you don't feel like you can afford to exercise those options. You feel like there's something more. You feel stressed and overwhelmed. There's all of the pressure, but you just really feel like it's not safe. It's not safe to exercise the options that you may or may not have. Like you really feel like that maybe you can't do the thing that is in your spirit. Maybe you can't birth the gift that you've been impregnated with. Maybe because you're worried about what being visible means. You're worried about telling your story because who it might hurt. You're worried about calling out people and friends who have hurt you. Like I see you. Like it's a lot of pressure right now, right? And it's a lot of pressure and you're trying to figure out what to do about it. Is that you? Like I see you. Let me tell you something about pressure. A lot of times our stress literally comes from this pressure that we feel when we're in a circumstance where we feel stuck and we feel like there's no way out. A lot of times the pressure and the chronic stress that we have subscribed to comes because we feel like we are backed up against the wall. Like I'm a caregiver now. What am I supposed to do? Like I don't have options, Lisa. Like I have to take care of everybody else. I have to be there for my spouse, for my kids, for my family, for my job. Like there's just not enough time and capacity for me. And so I feel stressed out. I feel overwhelmed. I feel chronically exhausted. It's taking a toll on my health. Is that you? Okay, they said definitely me. Okay, in preparation for today's conversation, because I'm going to share with you guys a cheat code that I activated a long time ago that has really, really helped me to stay calm under pressure. The pressure of chronic work fatigue, the pressure of family responsibilities, the pressure of having something I want to birth, a gift or a project or artwork that I want to put out in the world. And I'm worried how does it be received? Like I want to share with you guys what helps me stay calm in the midst of being a full-time entrepreneur and my business got to pay my bills, honey. Don't think there's no pressure over here. Don't think there's no pressure over here. But I'm going to teach you how I stay calm amidst all of that pressure. All right, let's get into it. Here's the thing. I love science. Like I love science. And when I was in school, like high school, college, like I really was drawn to the topics where like the science made sense. There were answers that were black and white. It was clear. It was non-negotiable. Like things, the answers weren't up for interpretation. Like I love science, right? So when I started getting into like these laws that come from different types of science, it really resonated with me. So you guys know like the law of gravity, for example, right? And so when I started like looking at and reading up on different laws, I started seeing how they could intersect with the work I do with you guys, right? When it comes to personal development, growth, stress elimination, optimizing your health. I'm like, how can I pull science into some of the topics that I teach? And so what I want to do for you today, because I love science, and I know a lot of you guys feel like you're under a lot of pressure in life, I am going to explain to you a law that comes from the science of systems and control. I'm going to explain a law to you, but more importantly, after I do that, I'm going to explain to you how I practically apply it. So there's a law that comes from the science of systems and control. It's called cybernetics, right? And this law really doesn't at first sound like it can apply to like eliminating stress. But when I break it down for you, but then when I tell you how I personally apply it, I think it's going to change the game for you. Okay. So, how do some people deal with work that they don't love? How do some people deal with the pressures of family responsibilities? How do some people deal with not having enough money to do everything they want to do in life? How do some people deal with the pressure of loss, the pressure of health challenges, the pressure of being a single parent? Whatever it is, how do some people navigate things like divorce and death and come out on the other side whole, healthy, and healed? Let me explain to you the law of requisite variety. Now, if you guys have been in my community Clarity for the last couple of weeks or so, you've heard me explain this law, but what you haven't heard me explain is how I use it practically. Okay. So I'm gonna first tell you the law of requisite variety. This comes from the science of systems and controls, an area of study called cybernetics. All right. The law of requisite variety is going to help you relieve the pressure that you are feeling from chronic stress. Okay. All right. So listen. Oh, I love this so much. So this law is very simple. It says the system with the greatest variability and flexibility has the greatest ability to influence and manage outcomes. Listen again, the law of requisite variety. It comes from a study in science called cybernetics, and it says that we're going to swap it out for person, place, or thing. All right. So this law says, it is a principle that says the person with the greatest flexibility and greatest variability has the greatest ability to influence and manage outcomes. So listen very carefully. You're in a stressful situation. Let's say it's your career. Like you don't love what you do. You done outgrown it. You want to do something different. You want to do something that fills you up, that feels fulfilling. Maybe your current work doesn't align with your gifts. And so this is bringing you stress because when it's time to go to this job or work this job, you feel overwhelmed, you feel unhappy, you don't feel like you're doing meaningful work anymore. Like maybe you're sick of the people on the job, maybe you're sick of the politics on the job, whatever it is, right? And when you activate this law of requisite variety that says the system or the person with the greatest flexibility has the greatest ability to influence outcomes and manage outcomes. Because listen, most of the time when we're in these situations, we feel stuck. Am I right about it? We're like, I'm unhappy, but it's paying the bills. I got to do what I got to do. I got to take care of these kids. I got to take care of my family. I got to take care of myself. I got to keep a roof over my head. I got to keep food on the table. You know what they say, like leave your job in this economy, right? Like it's very much given in this economy. You want me to do what? Right? And so you feel stuck. And that feeling stuck makes you feel pressure. But I'm telling you, the law of requisite variety. Come on, science. Listen, y'all. These laws of science don't just apply to the universe, right? If we really study, we can apply them to us. But you ain't even got to study. I'll study for you and then I'll bring it to you and make it practical, okay? So I'm going to repeat the law again. I'm going to give you some examples and then I'm going to tell you how I use it in my real life to stay calm under pressure. Okay, so the law of requisite variety for my note takers, for people who like to go down rabbit holes and want to look this up some more. It says the system or the person with the greatest flexibility has the greatest ability to manage and influence outcomes. So, what does that mean? What does that mean? That means whenever you're dealing with a complex or uncertain circumstance in your life, you need enough options to match the complexity that you're facing. Listen to me very closely. A lot of times we feel stuck and we feel a lot of stress and overwhelm, not because of the circumstance itself, not because of the job itself, not because you're a caregiver, not just because of your money. You actually feel stuck because you don't feel like you have enough options to match the complex circumstance that you're in. Okay. Break it down some more, Lisa. In life, business, your relationships, if it presents 5 or 10 different, if there's 10 different challenges in your relationship, if there's 10 different challenges in your career right now, but you only have one way of responding to that challenge, then you are already losing. You've already lost control, because the law of requisite variety says the person with the most flexibility and variability in options has the most control. So let's make this real. Let's make it real. Then I'm going to tell you how I apply it. Okay. So for example, if you have a bunch of challenges in your relationship, let's take a romantic relationship, right? And you're like, man, we ain't blissful. We used to be, but we ain't no more. Okay. And so there's a bunch of challenges, right? And you like, I'm not happy with this, that, right? And the only way you have historically dealt with disharmony in a relationship is to shut down, keep all your feelings on the inside. Maybe you vent to a friend or something, but that's your only option when you feel stuck. You lose, because that is your only way of responding to disharmony in your relationship is through silence, because you believe that if I bring it up, I'm disturbing the peace. I don't like conflict. And because I don't like conflict, I'm not going to address these issues that I have in my relationship. Guess who's going to be more stressed? You. Why? Because you have 10 problems in your relationship, but you only have one option for responding, which is muting yourself, because you believe muting yourself is how you keep the peace, and you just hope everything works itself out. You just hope this person wakes up one day miraculously and can read your mind. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're a parent and you are having challenges with your kid, right? And they're having behavioral challenges, they're having school challenges, whatever it is, right? Now, you have multiple challenges that are happening in this relationship with your kid, but your only go-to when it comes to parenting is yelling. That's the only thing you've ever used in your toolbox to try and fix the problem that you have, the challenges that you have with your kid. The law of requisite variety says the person with the most flexibility and variability has the greatest ability to influence and manage outcomes, which means what? Yelling can't be my only option, which means what? In my relationship, shutting down and muting myself cannot be the only option to address 10 problems. The person, the system at the table that has the most options has the most control, right? So if you are one of those people who has a stressful situation and you always react the same way in that situation, you have the least amount of options, which means you have the least amount of control. So the law of requisite variety, let me simplify it for you even more. It says this was developed by somebody named W. Ross Ashby. And W. Ross Ashby simplified the law of requisite variety by saying only variety can absorb variety. Only variety can absorb variety. That means that with every problem or issue that presents itself in my career, in my money, in my health, in my relationship, in my family, I have to have one or more options than the number of problems that I have. If I don't, I'm going to lose, because I only approach these situations one way, and I'm being hit with 10 problems. And that means I'm on the losing end. So If that first part made sense, just drop a 1 in the comments, and then I'm about to tell you how I apply this in real time and open myself up to more options for every problem that life presents to me. Coach, we got it. The law of requisite variety. The person with the greatest flexibility has the greatest ability to influence and manage outcomes. And the reason I feel stressed out and stuck is because I don't feel like I can manage my own outcomes. So I'm losing in life. I'm losing in my career. I'm losing in my money. I'm losing in my health. I'm losing in my relationship. I'm losing in my ministry. I'm losing in my marriage. I'm losing in my parenthood. Like, I'm losing because I keep trying to fix it one way and the problems keep compounding. And okay, one. Okay, now I'm about to teach you. I'm about to teach you. Now, this is the part where you're going to need your emotional support team, because this is the part where you're probably going to get triggered a little bit. And here's how I apply the law of requisite variety so that I always have more control over my problems than they have over me. Okay? I always have more control over my problems than they have over me. I am super chill, y'all, like super chill. I'm naturally introverted. So I'm super chill. So life throws stuff at me like it throws stuff at y'all. Like, nobody's life is perfect, right? But some kind of way, I don't allow the stress to take over me. Like, when the problem arises, I'm not stress eating. I'm not stress drinking. I'm not skipping a week or two worth of workouts because I just couldn't pull myself together because I'm an emotional wreck. I am not lashing out on people. I'm not shutting down and not talking to people. Like, I'm able to navigate the same challenges that life throws at me, that it throws at you, differently from the average person. I'm going to hit you with one question, and this is how I apply this stuff in real time. Here's the question you need to ask yourself every time you're met with a problem in life and you feel like your back is up against the wall and you feel like you have no options, and to prevent you going through another year where your problems have more power over you than you have over them. The question I need to ask you as your coach, as your internet coach, is, are you curious or are you convinced? Here's what I mean. I make a reel or I'm speaking on a stage and you're in the audience, and I say, you have to stop managing chronic stress and you have to start eliminating chronic stress, right? And then instead of saying, well, how do I do that, coach? You say, that's not possible. Nobody's like, it's not possible to eliminate stress. What you want me to do? Get rid of my kids? I need to pay my bills. What you want me to do? Quit my job? So you say, that's not possible. Let me give you another example. I say, listen, you need to increase your prices in your business and you need to increase your prices in your offer because you have to earn more money in order to make your business more sustainable, right? And you say, that's not possible. My audience won't pay more. My audience can't afford it. Like, I can't raise my prices. Like, that's not possible. Instead of saying, well, how do I do that? Right? So your life will change the moment you stop being convinced and you start being more curious, right? You're convinced instead of being curious, and therefore the conversation is over because you have automatically lost all your options. Remember, the law of requisite variety says variety absorbs variety. The more options you have, the more power you have over the circumstance. But when somebody presents you with a solution, you're already convinced it won't work versus being curious about how it will. This is the difference between convinced and curious. The breakthrough that you're looking for is on the other side of curiosity. The breakthrough that you're looking for is on the other side of curiosity. Listen. You cannot, when somebody says, for example, so I do this thing every couple of months called the Stress Elimination Lab, right? And then people come into the Stress Elimination Lab and they got all type of challenges, right? So the one we just did in June, we just did a Stress Elimination Lab in June. And we had a couple people in the room who were caregivers, right? Now, what a lot of us have heard about caregiving is about how hard it is, how much energy it takes out of you, how much time it takes, right? And so I say, oh, you're a caregiver. And I'd say, you know what? There's things that we can do to make caregiving easier on you. Like, you can still take care of yourself as a caregiver. You can still eat right as a caregiver. You can still do things and leisure that you enjoy as a caregiver. And you say, that's not possible. You say that's not possible. You say, listen, my mom, my spouse, my kid with special needs round the clock care. You instantly say that's not possible. Guess what? You just lost your options. Guess what? You just lost to chronic stress. So instead of being convinced, you need to start being curious. The more convinced you are about what you know, the least amount of options you have. So the next time I say, oh, it's actually possible to still take care of yourself, even though you're a caregiver, why don't you try saying, how? Why don't you try saying, well, what would I do first to get back some me time? Right? You're so convinced that things will work. I say, oh, you're trying to start that business? Well, one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started my company was not having a coach. I knew my subject matter, but I didn't know business. I needed a business coach. You need a business coach. And the first thing you say is, that's not possible. I can't afford it. That's not available to me. Instead of saying, well, how did you find your first coach? Is there any business coaching that's complimentary? How do I go about getting a business mentor that will make it more affordable? Or how can I get into an ecosystem or a group that can teach me? But you don't ask questions. You're just instantly convinced that that option is not available to you. So how do I apply the law of requisite variety in real time so that chronic stress doesn't keep taking over, so that I can stay calm under pressure when a problem pops up? Instead of being convinced that this problem is fixed, I decided many years ago to start becoming more curious. Your life will change when you start being more curious. Someone says, they are busy, they work hard, but it's still possible to lose weight even though you're a single parent, even though you work this many hours a week. And you say, that's not possible, I'm too busy. Guess what? You just lost. Like obesity just won, right? You're not curious enough. So listen to that. Here's a news flash. Your life is not the only template for how things could look. I'm going to say that again because some of y'all missed it. Your life is not the only template for how things could look. My entrepreneurship journey, my health journey, my growth journey is different from yours. So when I tell you that I've done something, instead of being convinced that it won't work for you, why don't you try being more curious? Your life is not the only template of how caregiving could look. Your life is not the only template of how single parenthood could look. Your life is not the only template of how entrepreneurship as a young Black woman could look. Your life is not the only template of how weight loss could look. Your life is not the only template on how battling a cancer diagnosis could look. But you so convinced that the way it's been is the only way it can be that you instantly rid yourself of options. You automatically, soon as stuff got hard, you stopped being curious and you started being convinced. There is more than one way. Baby, they said that cat can be killed 101 ways. Meanwhile, you trying to kill the cat one way. They done told you the cat can be killed more than one way. All you got to become is George, i.e. curious. Instead of telling, as soon as somebody come on a mic, as soon as some good rhetoric comes down your timeline, stop looking at it being like, that's a lie. I had y'all do this. Y'all do this in my comments. I'm making a reel about how to eliminate chronic stress and that is possible. And y'all in the comments, that's impossible. Nobody can get rid of chronic stress. You don't even ask a question first. You just so convinced that you don't even have the ability to be curious. You so convinced that what you know is the only way to know it that you lose all curiosity, which means what? You lose all options. Because what? The law of requisite variety says the system with the most flexibility and variety manages the outcome. Stop getting on people's content. Stop getting on people's posts. And before you even hear them out, after a 40-second clip, you already convinced of what's not possible. God dog it, that's so small-minded. That is so small-minded. So here's what I'm telling you. Okay, coach, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? Okay. To be more curious, you have to reintroduce a good old-fashioned who, what, why, when, and how into your vocabulary. Didn't we learn that in elementary school? Some of us did, okay? We learned how to formulate a what? A question. What are you saying, coach? I'm saying questions are your answers. Coach, I'm stressed out. What do I do? Here's the tip. I need you to graduate from statements to questions. Put it in the chat. I need you to graduate from statements to questions. Listen, I know y'all been together a long time, but it's possible you can repair it, or you can work as hard as you can on that relationship, and then you can make a decision to leave it and find love. That's not possible. We got kids, or our money is blended together. I can't afford to live on my own. Okay. If all you got is statements and no questions, guess what? I can't help you, because guess what? You curious and not convinced. We need to reintroduce that good old fashioned who, what, where, when, and how into our vocabulary. In order to be more curious, you have to ask more questions. Okay. If you want more options in life, you have to be more curious. Now, let me say this though. Now, this is a caveat. In order to ask more questions, you cannot have a spirit of shame or embarrassment. Now, that's hard for some of y'all. So let me slow down on this part, okay? In order to activate this pressure release system that I'm giving you right now, I tell you, if you want to release pressure, you need more options. If you want more options, you got to ask more questions. But in order to ask more questions, you cannot have a spirit of shame or embarrassment. Some of you are embarrassed to ask for help. Some of you are ashamed to ask about your circumstance because y'all don't want people to know it exists. So if that is you, that's where your work begins. You start praying for God to release the spirit of shame and embarrassment from you so that you can be more curious. God, the reason I'm not raising my hand to ask questions or to ask for help in these spaces that I'm in is because I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for what I don't know. I'm embarrassed about my circumstance. I'm embarrassed at this age to be going through this. Whatever crazy story you're allowing your subconscious mind to tell you, you cannot be more curious if you have a spirit of shame and embarrassment. You have to graduate from statements, "That's not possible," to questions. "Tell me how that's possible." You hear what I'm saying? That is the moment you unlock options. When you unlock options, you unlock stress relief. Y'all got it? So listen, stop thinking in statements and start thinking in questions. When you do that, your whole life will change, okay? When I teach entrepreneurs, so I have a mastermind and I help service-based founders build their business, right? And I'm going to tell you one of their most common fears that stops them from kind of slows them down from launching the business, okay? One of my entrepreneurs' most common fears are being asked questions that they don't know the answer to. Very common. Very, very common. They say, "Lisa, I don't feel like I know the science like you know the science. I don't feel like I know my subject matter like you know it. And so I'm afraid of not knowing. I'm afraid of not knowing." And so there's some embarrassment around not knowing. So many people have a failure to launch in business because of their fear of not knowing something. They feel like, "I'm embarrassed to not know," right? Many have expressed their concerns with not knowing. And so they want some assurance. They want to be able to give people assurance that they know what they're talking about. They're like, "They're not going to think that I don't know what I'm talking about." And I'm telling you, if you have that spirit, that's the same thing that's keeping you stressed out. Is you don't want to be asked a question that you don't want to know the answer to. And on the flip side of that, you don't want to ask questions because you don't want people to know you don't know something. Baby, you just lost all your options. I see it all the time with my founders. They're like, "I'm scared to do a masterclass. I'm scared to host a webinar. I'm scared to do a Q&A section because what if somebody asks me something and I don't know?" And then they're going to be like, "Oh my God, who are you to teach me and you don't know?" That's what y'all be saying. I ain't even making this up. That's verbatim the script that I hear y'all read off. "I'm afraid to do what you're teaching me to do, coach, to host a masterclass, to host a webinar, to do this because I don't know enough. I don't know enough." And that's how I know. If you're afraid to be asked a question, you're also afraid to ask a question because you also think it's embarrassing not to know. Right. And so now you're in a situation in life where you need real life help. Like you need somebody to throw you a lifeline. Like you need a couple more options than you have right now. But why don't you have them? Because you're not curious enough. Why aren't you curious? Because you have a spirit of shame and embarrassment when it comes to asking questions. The longer you have the spirit of shame and embarrassment for not knowing something or for needing help, the longer your stressful situation is going to have more power over you than you have over it. Stop thinking in statements and start thinking in questions, right? So Instead of being like, oh my God, this is so hard. That's a statement, right? So next time you're trying to like figure out how to create content, you're trying to figure out how to write a book, you're trying to figure out how to start a podcast, you're trying to figure out how to fix your marriage, you're trying to figure out how to earn more income so you can get out of debt. Instead of saying, oh my God, this is so hard, I want you to say, I wonder if this has to be so hard. Does this have to be this hard? Are there other debt elimination strategies I can entertain? If there's a more simplified way of launching this podcast or starting this book, think in questions. Think in questions, and God will deliver you the answers and the resource. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But because you think and talk in statements, God, like, oh, you know it all already. You know it all. You said it's so hard. Okay, you're going to declare it hard. Okay, you're going to declare it impossible. Okay. Oh, your heart posture has to be available, right? You have to think in questions. So instead of saying, oh my God, this is so hard, you got to say, why is this so hard? Does this have to be this hard? Was this hard for everybody else that did it before me? Okay. There's no resource to help people who already know. There's plenty of resources to help people that got questions. Okay. You can't be so convinced of everything. Try being curious. I wonder if. Try that. Just try that. Like, I wonder if, I wonder who, I wonder how. Think in questions. Open yourself up to options, right? You can't be so convinced that things won't work. And now you looking crazy. You got more pressure. Your uncertainty is building. And you like, why is my life like this and everybody else? Life is happening to all of us, but we think differently. Okay. Hey, it's Coach Lisa. If you've been feeling overwhelmed or stretched thin, or like you know what to do, but you just haven't had the capacity to get it done, this is for you. We recently released our newest coaching program, and it's called the Gold Handle Club. And this is the Imperfect Founders Edition. It's designed to help you eliminate chronic stress one intentional moment at a time. And it's designed, most importantly, to feel easy as opposed to a high pressure program. This isn't another course that you have to keep up with. It's a simple daily ritual paired with real coaching and community support designed to fit into your life and not overwhelm it. Here's how it works. The Gold Handle arrives at your door, and every morning for about 5 to 10 minutes, you sit still in silence. You scan the QR code, and every single day, new content unlocks a daily practice built around our signature HER method for eliminating chronic stress, not managing it, but eliminating it. And because this is our Imperfect Founders Edition, we're doing something super special. You're getting your Gold Handle on us. All you'll cover is shipping. Plus, your first 30 days inside of the club and community are completely complimentary so that you can actually feel the difference before making any commitment. So if you're ready to stop pushing off those major decisions that need to be made, those uncomfortable conversations that need to be had, those mindset shifts and that healing that needs to happen now, this is your opportunity to get coached through that without feeling like there's another big appointment on your calendar. This is designed to fit into your quiet time to yourself every morning. So click the link in the show notes, join us inside of the Gold Handle Club, take advantage of the Imperfect Founders special offer, and I cannot wait to coach you to optimal health and radical obedience. Now back to the show. I remember our revenue in business. At one point, I was like, I really need to get our revenue up. Like, we got some investments we want to make. I really want to grow our reach. I want to help more people, right? But what I did know is that I was already at capacity with like my workload. So I'm like, God, we need more revenue, but I don't have more energy. So I wonder what it would look like to get more energy, more revenue, with less or the same output. How can we generate more revenue in the business without me adding another appointment to my calendar, without me adding another class or curriculum to my to-do list? And guess what? Guess what I unlocked? Another option. I was like, you know what? What if this was at the beginning of 2025, y'all? I was like, okay, we want more revenue. I don't want to do more work. I know that's got to be possible. Okay, what if I took tithing serious? I was like, you know what I'm going to test out? I'm going to test out this concept of giving more away because I heard that an option for getting more is giving more. So at the top of 2025, I was like, I'm about to test this for 365 days. And I was like, I am about to give away every week. Like I used to pay tithes like loosely. Like, first of all, it was never really a tithe. It was never really a tenth. It was whatever I wanted to give, right? I never really obeyed, right? And I was like, I'm not only am I going to obey and be obedient with tithing consistently, I'm going to do a tenth, like a full tenth. And I was like, I wonder if we could generate more revenue just by me giving more away. Like I've heard several people talk about this strategy of give, and you be met with overflow. And I was like, let me see if this is true. And guess what I did? I tithe every single week. I started in January 2025 testing this new strategy of generating more revenue by giving more instead of working more. I was like, let me just try it because my template for my life is not the only way things can go. Y'all heard me say it earlier. So I was like, let me try somebody else's template, right? We love a good template, a good plug and play, right? And I was like, let me try somebody else's template for generating overflow. And guess what? Guess what? It worked. I gave more and I got more. We was getting applications for our mastermind. We sold out. We generated what? Nearly $200,000 in about a 2-week launch, right? Like it was crazy. I was like, we ain't never got this many students in this particular program for this launch. We ain't never got this. I started getting opportunity, speaking gigs. I said, there's more than one way to skin this cat. I got curious instead of convinced. Some of y'all convinced that the only way you can get more and earn more is to work harder. That's because you only got one option, one approach for solving this problem. There are options if you just get more curious. I decided instead of they said faith without works is dead. I said, child, I done did the works part. I'm like, God, it's got to be another way. I was like, wait. That sentence says faith without works is dead. I've been focusing on the works. I've been trying to increase revenue with more works. I was like, what if I increase revenue with more faith? What if I increase revenue with more faith instead of more works? I said, I'm about to give this money to God and have faith and let him do what God does. I said he gave you options in the sentence alone. We always focusing on the works. Oh my God, I want more clients. I want more money. I want more opportunity, but I don't have more time, energy, capacity. He didn't only say works. He said faith. What would it look like to exercise more faith? I don't know if you caught it, but that was a question. That was a question. What would it look like to exercise more faith and not more works? That was an option. That's an option. I'm like, let me give God his portion. Let me give to people in need. Let me tithe more and watch it come back doubled, tripled, and 10x. And guess what? It worked. We had record-breaking months. I'm like, child, the law of requisite variety says variety absorbs variety. The person with the most options and flexibility has the most control over the outcomes. And I'm telling you right now, the moment you graduate from convinced to curious, God, what would it look like to have more faith? What would it look like to be a caregiver that actually has the capacity to take care of herself? Instead of being like, it's not possible, it's impossible. What would it look like just to ask more questions? Questions are your answer. Does that make sense? Questions are your answer. So you got to have a spirit. Instead of having a spirit of shame and embarrassment to ask questions, start having a spirit of who, what, when, where, and how. And listen to this part. I'm not asking you to do anything. Did you hear that? I'm telling you, you're you're chronically stressed out. Like you're burnt out, you're overwhelmed, and you keep getting into these cycles of stress and burnout and overwhelm. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just telling you to get more curious. I'm telling you to ask more questions. Just say it out loud right now. Wherever you're sitting right now, think about a situation in your life that's stressing you out, and you genuinely have been telling yourself that you're stuck. You genuinely have been convincing yourself that there are no other options, right? You're genuinely convinced yourself that the current template of your circumstance is the only template that can exist. Try asking yourself a question out loud right now. I just dare you to exercise the option of asking more questions, the options of being more curious instead of convinced that this ain't possible, right? You can't get enough protein on a plant-based diet, instead of saying, well, how do you meet your protein requirements on a plant-based diet? Because I do keep seeing all over the place that a whole food plant-based diet can reverse type 2 diabetes. Whole food plant-based diet can reverse heart disease. So instead of being convinced that it won't work for your heart disease, instead of being convinced that it won't work for your diabetes, what if you just asked a question? Well, how could I get everything I need on a plant-based diet? Instead of coming in here all rogue and dogmatic about your perspective on life. That's not possible. Well, tell me, child, how am I here 10 years into a plant-based diet? I ain't had a single animal product, protein, more than enough, based on blood work, not my opinion. Okay. How else? How else? What's the question that you're willing to ask that will instantly unlock more options? You're too convinced, and that's why you're stuck, right? How else can I view this situation? That's good. Christy says, who could I ask about hiring a caregiver help? There you go. Get more curious. Get more curious. Activate a different part of your brain when you ask questions, okay? And let me tell you something. This is our cheat code for how we help people in our stress elimination lab. Like, we do our stress elimination lab. We just dropped the dates for the next one. I'm gonna go ahead and try and pull one off in August. I told you guys we were gonna wait till the fall, but I'm gonna pull one off. I think I could pull it off the last week that I have classes here in Princeton. So August 10th to the 14th is gonna be our next stress elimination lab, right? And let me tell you our cheat code for how I help people in our stress elimination lab. It's a 5-day lab, and I help them to eliminate chronic stress. And all that I help them do, the only way I do this is not even magic. All I do is introduce them to more options. Options. I help them unlock options they weren't willing to entertain before. Right? Options. That's it. I tell them options. What options do you have in this situation that you're not even entertaining because you are telling yourself a story about that option? Right? Like in the last lab, let me give y'all a testimony real quick. In the last lab, we had somebody who was a caregiver, and she's like, I take care of my spouse, and I have been taking care of him for years, and it has been really hard, and I have sacrificed my own needs. I have sacrificed my own leisure and sometimes my well-being. She was like, but I'm done doing that. So she was like, there was an event coming up that week of the lab that she really wanted to go to. And she decided to entertain options that she had for somebody else helping her to care for her husband. She tapped into the resources she had that she didn't want to tap into before. And let me tell you why she didn't want to tap into those resources. It's not because she didn't have them. She said she was worried about how his family would perceive her. It's not that y'all don't have options. There's a story you're attaching to the option. So she was like, I never did this before because I was worried about, his family thinking that I wasn't being a good wife if I wasn't doing the 24/7 around the clock care. But I am going to use my options that we already have of people that can help me when I want to go out of town. And guess what she did? She booked the ticket and she went out of town to Illinois. Why? Because I helped her. We helped her, God helped her to see that she had options. And if she starts challenging the story that she's telling herself about those options, she could activate those options. Those of you that were in the stress elimination lab, y'all know who I'm talking about, right? Terry, do you remember? Christy, do you remember who I'm talking about? She was like, no more. I have an event that I want to go to this week. My son is speaking. I want to have this experience. I'm no longer going to concern myself about what my in-laws think about me. And I'm going to exercise my options for nursing care that I have access to help me with caregiving. It's not that you're stuck. It's that you are telling yourself there are no options. And when you keep telling yourself you're out of options, that's the moment you lose. You're not curious enough. Who can I call? Where can I start? Some of you guys, I say, listen, you need a coach. And immediately you say, that's not possible for me. That's not available to me. Like, you're instantly like, I think and lack so much that the moment you tell me an option that costs money, I don't even say, well, how much does it cost? I say, I can't have it. It's not available to me. The more you become curious and the less you become convinced that an option is not available to you, the more stuck you're going to be. Yeah. Thank you. Y'all say, I remember. Yeah, yeah, thank you. It wasn't that she didn't have help. It was that she was deciding that using the help that she had was going to look bad, right? So the moment you go from convinced to curious is the moment you can stay calm under pressure. So the way I do this, y'all, is like anything can happen in life. And I don't like lose my marbles. I'm not like, I lost my dad last November, right? Things happen all the time. And instead of being like, I'm stuck, oh my God, this is going to break me, this is the worst thing ever, what are my options? How do I navigate this? Who do I know that's lost somebody? How do I approach this in a healthy way? Listen, I'm at school right now. A lot of you guys know I'm in Princeton, right? I'm at school right now because I was more curious than I was convinced. This is the last thing I'm going to share with you. Listen to this. This is very basic because I need y'all to know I apply this in real life. Like the reason I don't experience chronic stress, I just experience acute stress, the healthy type of stress, is because of what I'm teaching you. I'm more curious than I am convinced. Listen to this. I'm at school right now at Princeton because I was more curious than I was convinced. When somebody is suggested that I apply for Princeton, I decided to be curious instead of convinced that that wasn't available to me because they told me like, well, the program is going to require you to relocate. You can't stay living in Houston. You're going to have to relocate to Princeton, New Jersey, right? I decided to be more curious than convinced. When they told me, they suggested that I apply. I applied because I was curious. Applying for something doesn't mean you're going to do it. You just want to have the what? The option, right? I'm at school right now because I was curious instead of convinced that that wasn't available to me at this season of my life. I decided not to be convinced that it would take too long. I decided not to be convinced that it would cost too much. I decided not to be convinced that it would be too hard to go back to school and run my company full time. I decided to be curious. God, show me how would it be possible to go and have this Princeton Ivy League experience and run my company. I decided to be curious, but some of you guys, God be presenting you with opportunities and you so convinced that it won't work. You so convinced that it'll cost too much. You so convinced that it'll take too long. You so convinced that it'll be too hard. Instead of asking questions, you making statements and you losing. You losing. You're losing because you are convinced, right? So you got to unlock the spirit of who, what, where, when, and how. You got to unlock it. All right. So I decided, listen, I decided that I didn't want to just believe in God. Like that's for the average person. Like that's average, right? Believing in God is average. I decided that I was going to trust God. That's above average. Hmm? I decided I didn't want to just believe in God when it came to going to Princeton. I wanted to trust God when it came to going to Princeton. That is above average, right? Most of us say we believe, but our actions don't look like we trust, right? So I was like, let me graduate from a believer to a truster. Look at the question. What would it look like for me to relocate my whole life to a new city to have an experience that I never thought I would have? What could it mean, God, for me to go back to school with these lovely Black women, build relationships and bonds with them, have this Ivy League experience, take this thing to the next level, get mastery even more in the things that I teach my audience, and then be able to help them on another level? God, is this what you want from me? I'm curious. I didn't want to just believe in God. I wanted to trust God. I was like, I'm going to go through. When I got now the only way you can end up at Princeton, the only way you can end up at a university is this: you got to apply. That's been the process for years, for hundreds of years, for decades. That's been the process. You got to apply. Some of you guys don't even apply for opportunities because you're so convinced that the opportunity is not viable for you. But guess what I did? I gave myself the option of going to Princeton by applying for it when somebody suggested that I apply, instead of being convinced that it was going to cost too much, take too long, and be too hard to be back in school and run a company. I gave myself the option by asking questions, by staying curious so I wouldn't be stressed out. Because I'm like, what's the next season of life looking like, God? I know I'm about to write this book. I know we're making a run at the New York Times bestseller. But then what else? What else? What else? He's like, oh, watch this. Remember how you never lived on campus when you went to college before? Remember when you got accepted to Howard University, but you didn't go? Instead, you went to the University of Michigan because you had a full scholarship, but you commuted from home. I'm about to give you a lived on campus experience with other dope Black girls, and y'all are about to be doped in the mug on this campus. Y'all gonna have Sunday dinners together. We just had Sunday dinner last night. I would have lost this experience if I had been convinced that this wasn't available to me. But I decided to be curious, and guess what? Guess what? Not Brandy making us dinner every other Sunday. I get home cooked meals in Princeton, New Jersey from my neighbor who lived one floor down. Come on. Because I decided to be curious. Guess what she cooked last night, y'all? Guess what she cooked? She made some black eyed peas. She made some cornbread. She made some okra. She made a raw kale salad. I would have never had that meal had I been convinced that it was going to cost too much to relocate. That instead of being curious, instead of saying, well, how much does it cost to relocate? I've never relocated from Houston to Princeton, New Jersey. Let me see what that be like. Let me see what that do. What would have happened if I hadn't told my mama, like, Ma, I'm thinking about going back to school. And then she'd be like, bet, daughter, I'm going to help you rent out your place in Detroit. I'm going to help you. I would have never got that help if I hadn't have been curious. And I started telling people, Ma, what you think about me going back to school? Like, God, what you think about me saying yes to this opportunity? When I got the acceptance letter from Princeton, and they like, congratulations, you've been accepted. And we want to offer you a seat in this next cohort. What would have happened if I had just thought in lack, only decided to believe in God, but not to trust God? Like, what would happen if I only thought in statements and not questions? Like, y'all see where I'm going with this? The law of requisite variety. All right, I'm going to shut up. I think y'all got it. I think y'all got it. Ask more questions. Ask more questions and stop making statements. Stop being out here with your stressed out self. How you stressed out and a know-it-all? That's crazy. How you stressed out and a know-it-all? Let me get this straight. You stressed out. You feel under pressure. You feel overwhelmed. And you ain't got no questions. You just got all statements. You a know-it-all. That can't work. That's too hard. That costs too much. Statement. The moment your sentences start ending with question marks instead of periods, baby, the moment you go from a know-it-all to I don't know nothing. Like, you need to be out here. When you stressed out, you need to be out here acting like you don't know nothing. That's our problem. We out here know it all and stressed out. That's ridiculous. Okay. So the question is your answer. The more questions you ask, the more options you unlock. The more options you unlock, the more power you take back from that stressful circumstance. When you take back your power from that stressful circumstance, you get back in the driver's seat. You are in control. And guess what? Stress dissipates. Guess what? Stress goes away. So stop being so convinced. You can't be a know-it-all and stressed out. That's probably why you stressed out, because you ain't asked questions early in that relationship. Now you seeing all these red flags. You should have asked him and her more questions before you got with him. You should have asked that job more questions before you said yes to all of that work they got you doing. You don't ask enough questions. So the lack of questions is stopping you from getting out of the stressful situation, and the lack of questions got you into the stressful situation. Child, y'all know I'm so grateful for y'all. First of all, she told me not to say nothing, but let me tell y'all about Diana. Okay, Diana was like, Coach, you ain't got to say nothing. I'm back to work today. I can't catch your YouTube live this morning, but I just got to give a shout out to Diana. I was checking on y'all links this morning to make sure they was going to work, right? And then I'm going to the comments on this here YouTube video, and I already see Diana done dropped the super chat before the YouTube live started. First of all, because I'm so new to making money on YouTube, I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. I did not know you can send somebody money on a future live. So can we just give a round of applause, throw some hearts up for my girl Diana? She sent me money in the expectation that my conversation today was going to be good. Now, I was like, you know what, Diana? So listen, I couldn't reply to her on YouTube because it said, first of all, I never got sent money before the live. And so I hit reply and it was like, your time to reply to this has expired. And I was like, oh no, it didn't. So guess what I did? I went and emailed Diana to let her know I was grateful. I emailed her. I said, Diana, no, you didn't send me some money on YouTube before the live even starts at 10 a.m. Eastern, okay?
And she was like, Coach, I'm back to work today. I'm going to have to watch the replay, but I know it's going to be good. So I just wanted to make sure your tea cabinet was full. So I just want to personally say thank you to all of y'all who come on here, get a free keynote every week, and then bless me. And I appreciate you guys immensely. Just know it goes to the T Fund. It goes to the T Fund and to our systems to make sure I can keep coming on here and blessing y'all. So I really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you to Diana and everybody who dropped a super chat on YouTube this morning. From the bottom of my heart, I love y'all. So takeaways. Let's do some takeaways before we get out of here and or some questions, right? So let's spend a few minutes on takeaways and questions so we can support you, right? So what was the nugget for you today? You guys know the fee for free. Like super chats are optional. You don't have to pay for this. But one thing that I want to ensure that we do is at least share what resonated for you so that you guys can start seeing some shifts or some adjustments in your life, right? So I need you guys to tell me your takeaways so that I know that something landed and resonated and that we can start moving the needle in what you're struggling with. Christy says, my life is not the only template for how it can be. Exactly. My current situation is not the only way this situation could look, right? Yes, you're a single parent with a health challenge. That doesn't mean you just got to be stuck with it because your time is spent parenting and working. Your life is not the template. There are other single parents who are able to navigate that health challenge. There's other caregivers who are able to make time for themselves. There's other people in debt who are still able to get the resources they need. Like your life is not the template. Your life is not the template, right? There's multiple templates for how this could look. Thank you. That was such a good one, Christy. Shout out to Leah for me, says activate the faith. Yes, don't just believe in God, trust God. Those are two different things, two very different things. We think because we believe in God, like, no, I think God is real. Like, no, I think God is behind all of this. No. Believing in God and trusting God are not the same thing. So don't get them confused because your life will look like you don't believe. Like your life will look like you don't trust, right? Because you're staying in situations that are not healthy for you longer than you're supposed to. That is evidence that you don't trust God. You believe, but you don't trust enough to make a faith move. Let's see. Next takeaway. Get rid of the spirit of shame and embarrassment and ask questions. Yes. Like, listen, y'all, I am so blessed to be at Princeton with like this phenomenal group of individuals. Like the people in my cohort, like I really like a lot of them, right? And so as I told you guys earlier, we were having dinner last night. And like, I'm not ashamed of what I don't know, right? And so one of the ladies that was at dinner, her and her partner, they started a school. They started a Montessori school. Now, I don't heard of Montessori schools, but I didn't really know what it was. I don't have kids. I never had a reason to look into these different type of schools, right? And so I was like, what's a Montessori school exactly? I was curious. Instead of being embarrassed, like, I'll look it up later. I'll just Google it. The expert is sitting right here. She's starting a whole Montessori school. She started a whole Montessori school. So I was like, what's that? What they do there? I know what I know. Now, if you got chronic stress, you can ask me some questions. You got a lifestyle disease that you want to correct with a plant-based diet, you can ask me some questions. And you start Montessori schools, let me ask you some questions. That's how we grow and develop in life. We so embarrassed of what we don't know. We so ashamed. We so like, I should know, or I don't want to look like I don't know what they talking about. But you don't know what they talking about. But ain't it the truth that you don't know? So I was like, now I know it's a common, like Montessori school's been around for years. Many people know, I've heard the term. I just never been curious enough to care. But yesterday, one of my new friends here at Princeton, her and her husband started a Montessori school. I'm like, well, what'd that look like? How's that different from traditional education? And she told me, and now I get it. And now I got new information and we still friends and nobody's judging me. I got my lane of expertise. They got their lane of expertise. And guess what? When we're all curious about each other, when we're all curious about these different areas, guess what? We all get to grow together. I want to say a line, but I'm about to butcher it. Okay. What's that phrase that be like, what tide raises all ships? What's the phrase, y'all? What's the phrase? Oh, a rising tide. That's right, Christy, a rising tide. Okay. A rising tide lifts all boats or all ships, right? That's the way I've heard it in ships, right? A rising tide. So let your questions be the rising tide. Like if all of us got more curious, like I want you to take this back to your circle, take this back to your partner, take this back to your kids and encourage them to be more curious, right? The more curious you are, like the more curious I was yesterday at dinner, it enriched the conversation. And so it lifted everybody at the table by us now being able to go down this different lane with the conversation. right? So questions, good questions, is a rising tide. It raises all of our intelligence. It gives her the opportunity to explain it in a way that somebody who doesn't know anything about what she does can understand. Like, it makes everybody better, right? And so questions makes everybody better. Stop thinking it makes you look bad, but it gives those of us that do have the answers the opportunity to not only bless you, but to get better at what we do, right? So yes, that's it, a rising tide. We all getting it at the same time now. So that's what questions are. That's what curiosity is. And we need to revert back to that childlike part of us that was curious and wasn't embarrassed about falling or not knowing, right? That was okay with running to mommy and daddy for help. Like, run to daddy for help. God is daddy. Like, start asking questions, start getting the answers you need. Everything will go to the next level. Literally everything. Literally everything. So guess what? Guess what? Now I know what a Montessori school is. Booyah. You know what I'm saying? No shame. I'm at school. I'm here to be curious, right? Whether I'm learning in the classroom with the professors or with my classmates at a Sunday dinner, right? I'm here to be more curious. I'm here because I was curious about what it would look like to uproot my whole life and move to New Jersey. Like, just be more curious. Be more curious, you get rid of stress. Be more curious, you get rid of stress. Okay? All righty. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for everybody that showed up. So listen, I was going to read y'all some testimonials here. This is what I was going to spend some time saying, but let me just say this because I just saw this morning. I didn't even notice it. So our last lab, it was June. So I don't forgot already what was the dates of the last lab, right? It was like mid-June. Okay, but here's the point. We had 22 people in that stress elimination lab. And at the end of every lab, we ask our participants to fill out an evaluation, right? Because I believe in having a spirit of excellence. And I don't think you can get better without asking for feedback. That's one of my tips for having a spirit of excellence. I did a whole podcast episode about it. So one of the ways you have a spirit of excellence is you're always striving to get better. And one of the ways you get better is you ask for feedback. So at the end of our stress elimination lab, we asked for people to fill out an evaluation form, and they can just rate the lab. Like, it's anonymous, so they can be as raw and honest as they want to be. And guys, I just looked today. Oh my God. Out of the 22 people that we had in the lab, 17 of them did the evaluation. 17 of them did the evaluation. So a few people didn't do the evaluation form. Out of the 17 people that did the evaluation, every single one of them means 100%. Okay? 100% of the people that completed the evaluation form gave the stress elimination lab 5 stars. Gave it 5 stars. 5 stars! 100% of the people that took the evaluation gave the stress elimination lab 5 stars. I'm telling you, the way I be going in the lab and putting work into these curriculums and making sure that it really moves the needle for you guys. It's like, it's real. So I'm so proud of that. I just saw that this morning because I was going to read some testimonials for y'all. So I was on there looking for some good feedback, but then I ran out of time and all that stuff. But I was like, whoa, I forgot I hadn't looked at the recent evaluations. 5. Yes, Christy. And Christy was in the lab. She's one of the people that gave it 5 stars. Thank you, Christy, for letting these people know I ain't lying. Okay. I was like, yo, 100% 5-star reviews. And let me be very clear, this is not the first time. The one we did back in September, 5-star reviews. I was like, whoa. So I'm telling you right now, like, this is our line. We does stress over here. Like, we does it, okay? So on the evaluation form, y'all, we ask y'all, like, give us some feedback on the lab. Like, what, if anything, would you change? I think it's kind of how the question is worded. And do you guys know that the number one complaint that people put on the evaluation form is that it's not long enough? Like, that's the number. The other one is like tech stuff. Like, Lisa, we need a tour of the portal so we can navigate it. I'm like, got it. The next lab will have a tour of the portal, right? So we really read them to improve the next one. But Simply Vine, that is 100% the number one piece of feedback. People will say, so it's either between make it longer, like can we at least have 7 days instead of 5 days? Somebody said, can you make it 2 weeks? Or people say, can we have access to the replays even longer at least, right? So I was like, okay, we can give you guys a couple more days with the replays. That's not a heavy lift for our team. And then can you make it longer? Now that probably won't happen, right? So as an entrepreneur, you have to gauge the wants of your audience and your true capacity. Because I'm in school now, maybe I can extend the stress elimination lab next year when we, start the 2027 iteration. But I know my capacity. I'm in school this year. There's things I want to make sure. I just got to protect my capacity. So people are saying, make it longer. And the answer is going to be no. However, I will give longer access to the replays because it doesn't take so much out of me and the team, right? And so because there's emails that have to go out, there's more curriculum that will have to be built, right? That's another day or appointment on my calendar. So when you're an entrepreneur, you have to gauge what's well within your capacity to do while still taking into consideration what your audience is asking for, right? But that's the number one piece of feedback we get, which I think is a dope piece of feedback. It's too short. I'm like, what? You want to spend more time with me yelling at you about your limiting beliefs? What a phenomenal piece of feedback. You get to be curious about whether, God, how can I make this work? Okay. Ask a question if you know you need to be in the lab. Don't be convinced that it's not available to you. Shonda said, this is why we have to support Brandy as she feeds Coach Lisa, who in kindness blesses us. Where is the Cash App or Zelle info for Coach Lisa? Oh, thank you, Shonda. Thank you, Shonda. I'll be dropping Cash App and Zelle. It ain't that serious. It ain't that serious. I come on here every week. Like, I don't just come on here for you guys. Like, I'm a professional speaker. And so also I come on here for reps. Like, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to only get reps in for speaking when waiting for somebody to invite me to their stage. So guess what? I created my own stage. So I do a keynote for you guys every week. So just know when every organization that books me to speak, like I'm coming in fresh off of reps for the past how many weeks. Like you're getting the best version of me because I practice speaking every week. So I come on here and I'll be like, okay, Lisa, you got to control your pace. You got to get better with your storytelling. You got to get better with breaking down your lessons so they're super comprehensible for the people to understand. You got to get better at doing a series and making multiple lessons tie together. Like I come on here for reps too, guys. And so we're not talking about entrepreneurship today, but this is one of the things I teach my founders to do. Like you cannot wait for somebody else to give you an opportunity for you to get reps. Like curious, what opportunity can I create for myself to get better at my gift? What opportunity can I create for myself to develop mastery in the thing I think I'm called to do? Right? So I know I'm called to teach and to speak. So I'm not going to wait for organizations to slide in my email or slide in my DMs and offer me their stage. I create my own stage. They see me on my own stage and they be like, can you come do what you just did on YouTube on our stage? That's happened to me multiple times. Can you just do what you did on TikTok and come to our stage? That's how I got booked with Microsoft. She was like, I saw your clip on TikTok. I was like, say less. Let's get this money, right? Let's get this money and get these transformations, right? Everybody about to be blessed. So I'm here every week because this is what I do, right? So anyway, it's been a good time. Love y'all. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Radical Obedience Podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who may need a little more peace, clarity, and courage in their life. And if you're ready to discover what's really driving your chronic stress and overwhelm, and what's required to make your obedience more radical, visit lisaangelsmith.com/radical obedience, or just click the link in the show notes to take our Radical Obedience Assessment. Until next time, remember, the goal isn't to control everything. The goal is to surrender completely, trust deeply, and obey boldly. I'll see you in the next episode.